All right, welcome to this week's press conference with Coach Johansen following a 42-21 home win over Drake. Heading into Valley play this weekend on the road at number 1 ranked North Dakota State. We'll start with opening comments from Coach and then go to the media for questions. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, pleased with a good win at home versus Drake. Got ourselves going early. A really good, tough, disciplined football team. Played on Saturday. Felt really good about how our guys came out and executed early in that game. Got a lot of guys taking the next step forward. What we needed to do on that day, and feel really good building on that performance. Really pleased with our ability to get a little bit more balanced there and get our explosive pass plays going offensively. Aiden, Lorenzo Fenner, our offensive line, all seeing Tennell Bryant break out a little bit on Saturday was certainly something our program needed and wanted to establish moving forward. Defensively, watching guys like Mikey Munn come along, DeJuan Lewis with a big play, and in our front continue to play really good football. So another week of growth, another week where we feel like we headed in the right direction and need to continue to do that. Playing a good Bison team on the road, certainly nice to get into Valley play. Where we were familiar with the teams and ways we've played guys in the past. And so looking forward to a great week and a great challenge versus an excellent football team. I can't hear you, Jay.
All right, Trev.
There you are.
You got me?
Yep.
All right. Talk a little bit about the matchup with NDSU. The last team to beat them, the way it ended, obviously was exciting for you and probably very frustrating for them. What are you expecting out of this matchup in terms of, surely Tim's going to have them really ready to go and amped up. It's homecoming for them on top of it. So just some, as you look at this matchup, what has to go well for you to be successful in Fargo again for the second straight time you've gone there?
Yeah, I'm sure they got plenty of bulletin board material from the year before. No question about that. I'm sure they're hungry to beat us in the regular season, as we've kind of gotten the best of them the last couple of years that way, and they got the best of us in the playoffs in between. So it's been a good back and forth. They're a good team. I think for us it's our next chance versus a good test. To see where we're at. For them, I think it's, a test, finally in this season for them to see where they're at. So I think both programs are certainly in a position to say, this is a measuring stick on what the season could look like moving forward, or what is the improvement that needs to happen between now and our goals. So I don't think is there so much gravity on this one that's going to, derail seasons either way? I don't think so. But there's no mincing words. It's definitely going to have implications in the Valley, and we certainly are both co-defending champions and want that. So, we can't, like always, we can't beat ourselves. We can't let a team establish run game that just chokes us out. I think we did that a little bit, in the third quarter of last year's game, where we allowed a 20-yard drive, which was I think a great competitive drive between two teams that kind of set it apart to make it a little bit more exciting at the end. So the same things we always want to do to win football games is going to be what it's going to take against a North Dakota State team, and for them I'm sure they're talking about the same things.
How has the success against NDSU recently, being able to go to Fargo, being able to beat them in general, which had been such a struggle since the transition to the Division I era, you've been around for a lot of it. Obviously, you've seen the growth of the program and the trajectory. How has that success kind of spurred the level being raised to where it's gotten over the last couple of years for USD?
Yeah, our program is in its infancy still in relationship to that, and they've given every team in the country problems in that building. I want to say they've only lost 8 or 9 times in whatever that statistic they have out is. And, luckily we've done it twice and looking to do it a third time. But when you go up there and win, I think a lot like coming here and getting a win in the Dome. They're tough places to play. And, you're going to gain some confidence knowing that, your processes and what you're doing and how you're doing it can lead to positive results. And so, we certainly expect that. And, I think at this point it's not some unconquerable feat like it might be in some other programs. We definitely feel like we can go up there and win football games.
One obviously notable change lineup-wise for them this year is Cole Payton. They go from a guy with all the experience, the pedigree of Cam Miller to a guy that's relatively unproven, at least as a starter. I know you know him well from the recruiting process as well, but he's been extremely efficient as a starter so far, 71% completions. Obviously, he's dynamic with his feet as well. What kind of challenge do you see with him just defending him?
Yeah, I mean he's a unique athlete. Obviously physically he's 235, 40 pounds. Playing the game as a tight end at quarterback. Body style wise, he's certainly a quarterback. Everybody kind of I think maybe underrated him as a passer. Hard to see. We get comfortable seeing a lefty throw the football in our building, so you can appreciate it when you see it out of another guy. His ability to complete the ball and run that offense and distribute the football. But when you couple that with a really physical run game and his ability to hit explosive plays, he's a challenge. You got to account for him. You got to account for him in your defense. You can't you got to dictate who's going to carry the football, and a lot of times it's you want the quarterback to carry the football. And in some cases like this, you rather have the running backs carry the football maybe at times because he is, a unique athlete like that. So, I think more than anything, he's shown a ton of aptitude this year when given the opportunity to throw the football around, and we all know he could. I mean, he was like I want to say he was like a draftable Major League Baseball player. I mean, he's throwing the ball 90-plus miles an hour in high school as a pitcher. Was a really successful high school player in Omaha, and he's got what it takes to do that. We've got a heck of a challenge and one we're looking forward to.
Last one for me, just collectively, as you look at this Bison team as comparison to the one that won it last year, do they do anything? Is it just Bison football, that typical Bison football, or do they do some other things differently or better than they did a year ago?
Yeah, I think when you look at in my history with them since 2019, it's evolved, especially with Tim taking over and what they're doing versus that, has definitely got his experience tapped into certainly what they're doing offensively. Defensively they continue to evolve, but still have the fundamental things they've done forever as part of their systems. But I think like all teams you respect, they play the game the right way. They're tough, they're fundamental, they're physical, they got great effort. But yeah, they've changed, over the years, particularly in the last two, to be a little bit different stylistically. But the roots of the way they play the game are still the same.
That was good. Thanks, Travis.
Yep.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, Coach, just one for me today. Lorenzo Fenner really was able to showcase his skill set last week. Just kind of what are you going to be looking for him to stretch the field against NDSU?
Yeah, it's really those shots to Lorenzo are a product of defense and what they're given to us. We've got a lot of work to do to find ways to create our explosive plays, and certainly if given the opportunity to get one to Lorenzo, we feel really good about his ability to finish with the ball in his hands. Again, like. Our ability to game plan around what they're doing and create some predictability where we think we can take those shots. We're going to try and do that, no doubt, always. Can we make teams, stop our run game? And that's A1. And if you got to stop your run game with too many people, that's when we really feel good about our chances with Lorenzo and others to create explosive plays.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis.
You bet.
Go ahead, Trey.
Hey, Coach, it's going to be, a hostile environment in this matchup inside the Fargo Dome this time around. especially the guys beating them the last couple of years in this regular season matchup and last time there at Fargo. Just kind of how can that season opener at Iowa State kind of replicate how it's going to be on the road for your players in this game?
I mean, these are the environments you want to play in, right? Like, I mean, nobody wants to go into an empty stadium at home or on the road, and we'll play ball in a parking lot. But what players grow up thinking about playing in, it's high stakes games with great crowds that are hostile against you, and going in with your team and rallying with each other to go try and get a win in a hostile environment. That's what players and coaches want to be a part of. And so we want to create that in the dome when people come here and get it to our advantage. And we want to go into other buildings and get the toughest test we can. And the Fargo Dome's been a great place to compete. And there's nothing better when it's quiet in there, but they can certainly affect the game when things are going well. So we're looking forward to it. I think our team's looking forward to it. It's a heck of a challenge, and one that you want to go play in these games.
And then Bryce Lance is one of, if not the best wide receiver in all of FCS. Kind of what makes him special as a pass catcher, and kind of what does your secondary need to do in order to limit some of his production? Yeah,
super talented guy. Got a lot of respect for him. Obviously, we defended him the last couple of years and had to deal with, kind of his skill set and what they try and do to get him the football. NDSU they always have, kind of one premier receiver that they like to, surround things with. And then, they got a really talented room. There's Roger Nelson still in there as an experienced guy, and some other players that are really contributing to that pass game, and then they use their tight ends and backs in a lot of different ways. But, it starts with Trey and his ability or Bryce, and to try and, get him down the field and get the ball in his hands and let him do what he does well. In finding different ways to get in the football, you got to make sure you know where he's at and what they're trying to do, and make sure you don't let him get behind your defense, because he can score points in a hurry.
And then final one for me. NDSU gives up less than 6 points per game on defense, but currently leads the FCS. Kind of what have you seen on tape so far from their overall defensive scheme that makes it hard for teams to move the chains on them?
Yeah, I guess I don't necessarily look into the numbers as much. I think right now we're all sitting on a bunch of non-conference schedules that are hard to use data to determine who's good and not good, or productive or not productive. I think we're all finding a way to use these 4 games to see where we're at, and Valley play will tell. I certainly feel like that with our football team. They're an outfit that plays the game the right way: hard, tough, competitive, fundamental. A lot of respect for them. And each team has challenged them in really different ways, and certainly different ways than we will on Saturday. So, again, I think, we're focused on ourselves in that manner, not necessarily, who our opponent is. What they do and what we need to do are kind of the hallmarks of the week. And but a lot of respect for them. They've done a great job to date.
Thanks, Coach.
But.
All right, anyone else? All right, thanks everyone. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate it, guys.